As Catherine read for us this morning, we find another story of how the ancient Hebrews are always on the move. The book of Exodus is basically one long road trip, and today's story from the Chronicles of Samuel describe another great caravan. And you know what makes really great road trips? Really great music. You know this and I know this. It's a summertime lesson. It's July. Who doesn't wish they had a friend with a convertible or an old pickup truck on a country road with the windows rolled, like actually rolled, not button pressed down, wind in your hair, music blaring? The classic American road trip powered by Dolly Parton and Bruce Springsteen, Journey, Tracy Chapman, U2, you know the others, all with healthy doses of songs everyone can sing along to, like Bye Bye Miss American Pie or I Would Walk 500 Miles. You're welcome. You know what I'm talking about, right? Country roads that don't take us to our actual New York City homes, but to the homes in our minds, the ones from our childhoods or from younger years, the home where our hearts long to go at Christmas or for family reunions. Or maybe it's a home that we haven't quite gotten to yet for some future time with the family that we're starting now. Those of you with children know that music is a great way to keep everyone occupied while traveling. And there are no end of songs and no end to certain traveling songs, either counting bottles of pop on a wall or describing the motions of a wheel on a bus, that again, everyone seems to know and sing and be annoyed at all at the same time. Music and travel, they go together like Walla Walla Bing Bang. That's just how it should be. And this is not a new phenomenon. It's as old as the road trip itself. When the Hebrews left Egypt, after those prayers of Pharaoh, Pharaoh, let my people go, were answered, when Moses led and Aaron prayed, Sister Miriam was in charge of two essentials for that trip. First, making sure the travelers had water throughout their journey, and second, and just as sustaining, music. Riding shotgun to Moses, Miriam was in charge of the Exodus playlist, a mix of freedom songs and hopeful anthems. She had a tambourine and she danced, often in the front of that procession. But she always looped back. That's what she did. She always looped back to make sure no one was left behind. This was her gift. And in the story we heard Catherine read to us this morning, we again find a road trip and the accompanying music. Here, the ancient Israelites, who are heirs to the ancient Hebrews' freedom, are again on the move. 30,000 of them to relocate the Ark of God to the city of David. The city of David, which of course is important to the ancient Hebrews, and it's also important to us, as I'm sure you can recall more than a few lines of songs usually sung in December about a certain birth in Royal David City, or for the road trip of a young woman and her fiancé were out of the house and line of David. 30,000 men were gathered for the procession of the ark into the new city of David. 30,000. That's 5 Radio City music halls full of people. It's 15 Delacorte theaters, or 1.5 Barclay centers, or perhaps more fitting for today's sports events, it's twice the number of people that were at Wimbledon Center Court a couple hours ago, but it's only half the number of fans expected at Wembley this afternoon. 30,000 people gathered to celebrate the moving of the Ark of God into a city. 30,000 men, which is to say that there were many, many more than 30,000. There were women and children. All sorts of people were there that day. 30,000 people gathered to sing and dance and revel because God was coming into their city. The last time our city came close to that many faithful in a single place worshiping God is perhaps 2015, when 20,000 people gathered in Madison Square Garden for a mass led by Pope Francis. And as spectacular as that celebration was, it didn't hold a candle to King David dancing and singing and making holy noise while celebrating the entry of God into their city. Last year, road trips were a thing not many of us got to do. We didn't do a lot of singing together last year either. True, there were occasions when we all took road trips to places where we might ordinarily fly. These weren't necessarily the festive kind of road trips. They were pilgrimages, they were filled with a bit of dread, they were anxious. Last year's singing rates might have been down communally, but official estimates show that there was no decrease in singing in the shower or humming a joyful tune under a mask. These were the solitary processions that were our theme last year as God took up new residences in each of our homes and across Zoom screens. This year, however, we're all getting a little antsy. I'm hearing from many of you about trips to see family that you haven't seen in over a year. We're worshiping across multiple timelines this morning, multiple time zones. And I'm hearing about vacation plans and weekend sports tournaments, games that have our youth and their parents on their road every Sunday morning. Summer is back this year, and we all need a little R&R, the kind that comes with a lazy playlist full of memories. Together, we are all on a journey to a new place. We're on a road to reopening, to regathering, to regrouping, and to all the things that we've missed and paused these past many months. There's no going back, but the road does call us ever forward. And the road of faith is much like the best kind of road trip, or of the path that divides in the woods. The path of faith is often the one that is less traveled. Faith is a backroad journey, not a highway. There's no fast track. There's no HOV lane. There's no toll booths. It's a quieter road where we can hear the voice of God speaking through tree leaves or waves lapping against the shore as the road takes an unexpected twist and reveals sunlight coming through the grass, or of dew in the morning, or a creature sitting singing their own song. The path of faith is not the common road. It is certainly not the normal road these days, but it is the road that each of you have chosen, the road that I have chosen, the road that together we affirm by coming together today. It's another thing about the path of faith that's much like the best road trips. It's best not to do it alone. The path that follows Jesus, much like the procession of the Ark of God, is one that begins and works and is always in relationship. Remember that day at the beginning of each of the gospel stories where Jesus hangs up his carpenter's apron and sets out to do his years of public ministry? What's the first thing he does? The first thing he does is call the disciples, which is to say he gathers some friends. He starts with relationships. In the Gospel of John, his first miracle right out of the bat, it's at a wedding, the celebration of a relationship. And even then, even at that first miracle, he only does it at the assistance of his mother, which is to say a very important relationship. Even when he's dying on the cross, he ensures that his mother and his beloved disciple maintain their special relationship, which of course they'll need to get through the coming days. Throughout the Gospels, Jesus doesn't act alone, but always with and in his community. The ministry road that he walks, the path of faith to which he calls us still, is one that always includes other disciples, always includes friends, and always invites others to join us. All the more voices for singing the songs of faith, all the more hands for making lighter the load, all the more souls for dancing both the historic Jesus and the eternal Christ are all about relationship and road trips and playlists. And this is what brings us all together today. How we all got here. What roads did we take to get here? We didn't walk along 77th Street to get into church today. Nobody walked down West End Avenue or up Broadway from a subway. Maybe you only made the short distance from your bedroom to your living room sofa. Maybe you haven't even made it that far. Maybe you're with friends now, physically as well as here virtually. This is what a church is. A church is not a person acting alone. A church is people joining together. We are a people on a road together to witness and to worship. We are a people who come together to pray and to learn and to support. We are a people who ground ourselves in faith to speak to the world as we believe God is still speaking to us. We are a people of compassion and of truth, of loving where there has been pain, of offering grace where there is wrong, and of comfort where there is mourning. The road of faith is not always easy, but it needn't always be hard either. Like David dancing with his people, our own road trip of faith can also be joyful and light. It can be celebratory. It can celebrate God's presence with us this and every day. I dare say it should. For where Jesus is, there is always cause for joy and always the opportunity for celebration. And as you know, Jesus loved a good road trip. Always on the move, walking, processing, sailing, riding. He and that band of disciples and friends, they performed many wonders and acts of faith while on that road trip. The one we call his ministry, the one we remember and honor and try to walk along with ourselves these days. And along that road trip, where they did many acts of healing and mercy and compassion and miracles, well, along that way, the less spectacular things, the things that aren't always recorded, but if you read the scripture carefully, you'll find them. You'll find the moments of pause where they were eating and resting, sitting on mountains, doing the things that young people always do, talking late into the night, dreaming big dreams, and inspiring more than a few new people to join in the love of God. This road trip that they were all on, there was no doubt some music along the way, some singing and dancing. They were faithful. They knew their scriptures. They knew all about Miriam. They knew about King David's dancing. Which one of the disciples do you imagine as in control of the playlist? Was it Peter? Maybe that's what made him so beloved. The musicians are always best loved. Judas? Maybe Judas. Judas was always a rebel. I bet he liked to let his hair down and roll up his tunic. He knew how to party. Thomas? Skeptics often make great DJs. And so this summer, we're all on a road trip that is taking us toward autumn and to the time even after that. We're moving forward. Destination, schools reopening, and some of us returning to worship in the sanctuary while others of us will stay worshiping online. Destination, an office. Destination, somewhere with other people. We're all on a journey. And we're singing as best as we can on Zoom, even as so many of us long for more. As of today, we are planning to arrive back in our sanctuary in a new way, for a new beginning on Sunday, October 3rd. The trip between here and there is one of continued study and watching, of endless planning and lots of work. But it's also one that is filled with some time for rest stops and layovers. We've been on the most incredible, perhaps the most arduous journey, while staying mostly still this past year and a half. And where will our faith take us next? Where do you want to go? What's your path? What is your faith calling you to do? Where are you walking this summer? And how will you share that with your church, with the people that are gathered here today, with your fellow disciples and friends? And who else needs to come along on the journey with us? What music do we need to hear? What songs will empower us and enliven us? What do we need to sing as we move along? What will not just sustain us for the work and the living ahead, but enthrall us, enliven us, and make us throw caution out the window and make fools of ourselves for the living of a summer day, with the breeze to our back, with friends and family? What's the road trip you've been on, and where do you see yourself going? Wherever it is. Make sure there's good company and great music with you. Make sure you find some time for rest along the way. For on summer days, it's easy to remember that it is slow and steady that always wins the race. Remember that revelry is a faithful act, and there should always be more music and more dancing and more friends with which to share it. And this summer, while all of us think about the fall and each of us has a different set of expectations and worries and hopes, may we all take a moment to take the road less traveled, to find a backwoods path or a side street in a neighborhood you haven't explored, and open your eyes, and open your hearts. Breathe deeply and listen to the song that's in each of us. Maybe it's an old song that you haven't heard in years, but whose words you still know by heart. Or maybe it's a new song that at first makes you cringe, but warrants a second listen. Maybe there's a song you long to sing with friends, maybe even with the friends on this screen, a song that we'll sing in October and November and December. I've been keeping a playlist of all the songs I've missed from our sanctuary these past 18 months. We're going to play all of them, all out of season. We're going to sound a little out of tune, but we're going to rejoin and we're going to hear many things this fall. I dare say we're already singing them to ourselves. And whatever it is, whatever they are, what Moses and Miriam and King David and Jesus, what many other faithful leaders have shown us through all the generations, is that the path will be better for the singing, and the trip will always be better for the company. Road trips and playlists, activities for a summer day, faithful acts that will lead us home to the place we belong. Amen.